The Congress party, we were reliably informed by Rahul Gandhi just a few days ago in Parliament, is a unifier, unlike the BJP. That is what he said. He said that the BJP is presiding over a divided India, which it has helped to turn into two nations, two Indias. If the Congress is so unlike the BJP, then why is it today emboldening separatists by launching an unsolicited tirade against Hindi-speaking migrants from Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and New Delhi working in Punjab? If you don't believe me, viewers, just listen to Punjab Chief Minister Charanjit Channi, who also doubles up as the chief ministerial face of the Congress party. Today, viewers, Channi sought to banish from Punjab Hindi speakers, who he derisively refers to as Bhaiyas, in a massive poll rally. Watch this.
Oh, bhai, Punjabiyan di roh hai Priyanka Gandhi. Saadi Punjaban hai, Punjabiyan di bahu hai. Ek se hi tagde ho ke ek paase ho jao Punjabiyo. Ye jehde UP de, Bihar de, Delhi de Bhaiya aage ithe raaj karde na bharat nahi karde.
Now, viewers, if the sentiments expressed by the Chief Minister weren't bad enough, then Priyanka's reaction is, look at her in the visuals on your screens, cheering lustily. Just what is she encouraging? Punjab doesn't need to hear these words. For almost 2 decades, it suffered egregiously under the sword arm of Khalistani separatism that thrived on othering communities. Her own grandmother was killed by such elements. Her father was blown up in Tamil Nadu by the proponents of Lankan Tamil separatism. Those that ignore history are condemned to repeat it. But then Congress, it appears, is learning well from its newfound ally, the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra, that built its politics around a highly polarizing parochialism. From targeting South Indians, settlers from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, Bal Thackeray had it in for all of them. Ironically, it was the Congress that despised his politics the most. The BJP, of course, said very little, as it was joined at the hip with the Shiv Sena since 1989, till just about 2 years ago. But today, viewers, the BJP, also doing an artful somersault, was first off the blocks to attack the Congress. Now, viewers, listen in to how this has played out cacophonously in the political arena. Listen to this.
हम पंजाब को पंजाबियत की नजर से देखते हैं। हमारे लिए पंजाबियत ये सबसे प्रमुख है। ये जो हमारे विरोधी लोग हैं ना, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ पंजाब को सियासत के चश्मे से देखते हैं। हम पंजाबियत को गहराई से देखते हैं भाइयों। और इसलिए हमें करतारपुर साहिब कॉरिडोर के विकास का सौभाग्य मिला।
तो प्रियंका ये कहते हैं कि मैं यूपी की बहू हूं, और यहाँ पे आके चंदी जी ये कहते हैं कि बाहर वाले यूपी वाले जो भैया हैं उनको राज नहीं करेंगे। आपको लगता है कि
तो फिर उनको प्रियंका को नहीं आने देना चाहिए यहाँ पे? प्रियंका को क्यों बुलाते हैं जब?
Now, viewers, this is not the first time the Congress and its leaders have made comments that pit Indian against Indian. Let me run you through some of the comments that have been made in the past. Charanjit Singh Channi, of course, I don't need to tell you because you've already heard him. Priyanka Gandhi, she said Punjab belongs to Punjabis and they'll run it. Rahul Gandhi said India described as union of states, not a nation. Rahul Gandhi said also in another instance, unlike in North, politics of Kerala is refreshing and intelligent, as if to suggest that the politics up north is the opposite. Rahul Gandhi, while campaigning in Assam, the last round of assembly election, says we'll hike Assam tea workers' wages with Gujarat owners' money. So here again, viewers, making one community look exploitative in the eyes of another. How does all this translate into policy or actions in Congress-ruled states or under Congress dispensations? On the ground, viewers, we put together a few hard facts for you, viewers, on this show, India Upfront. I always rely on hard facts to bring you closer to the truth so that you are better informed when you go out there and make arguments. Article 370, viewers, a highly discriminatory othering piece of the Constitution has been recently abrogated, as you know, but the Congress slammed the BJP for scrapping it. Especially this aspect of it, viewers, because it believes that somehow the Kashmiris are being disadvantaged. Muslim quotas. Congress backed religion-based quotas in Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. It even made a push for them while it was in government at the center. A Lingayat quota. Congress proposed dividing Hindus for quotas in Karnataka. We all know how that played out, viewers. In the sedition case, the Congress leapt to defend those accused of raising Bharat Ke Tukre slogans. Gave them a clean chit, even though the matter still is being deliberated in court. The Khalistan movement inception, separatist Bhrindanwale propped up to counter Akalis in the 80s. It is now in alliance with a party playing Marathis versus outsiders card. We're talking about the tie-up with the Shiv Sena. And ex-Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said, Muslims have first claim on resources in this country. So there you have it, viewers. This is how it plays out. Let's open this up. Let's open this up. I don't want to take too much of our time away from our panelists. Dr. Ranganathan joins the debate. Dr. Ranganathan, what do you make of these remarks that have been made by the Chief Minister in the putative chief ministerial face of the Congress party in Punjab?
No, good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. Look, there's no other way of putting this. This kind of parochialism and denigration of the hardworking, honest migrants from UP and Bihar is totally unacceptable. Totally. I condemn it in the harshest of terms. And Rahul, you also know this, I also know this. All hell would have broken loose had any BJP chief minister said this. But since it is a Congress chief minister, let's move on. Nothing to see here. आप लोग कृपया अपने घर जाएं, भीड़ ना लगाएं. Please go home and speak truth to power. You know, Rahul, the dynasty doormats are in a bind here. Because had it been just Channi, they'd have condemned his utterance and escaped. But how can they explain away the wild cheering and applause of Priyanka Gandhi at what Channi said? She is clearly, see the clip, she is clearly in agreement with Channi as to how the UP and Bihar migrant labor is to be treated by Punjabis after elections. Clearly. But you know, there is no other explanation for this except for the fact that the fire lit by the erstwhile Congress zamindars has singed the minds of their progenies so completely that nothing grows on it, on that charred landscape, except entitlement. Remember how Siddaramaiah had made similar disparaging comments about UPites when he was the Karnataka chief minister? Remember how Rahul Gandhi had recently made disparaging comments about North Indians in general? And according to him, their superficial understanding. And the very same guys have the temerity to go to UP and ask for votes with grand promises. But forget that. Let me expose them further, Rahul, with your permission, and come to the reason why they are so condescending and insulting towards UP people. It is because they have kept them poor and impoverished and unemployed and malnourished and uneducated. You don't believe me? Here are the census indices of Amethi and Raebareli, the Nehru-Gandhi Vadra dynasty bastions, when they were under the dynasty control for 60 years. People below poverty line, 54%. Households with electricity, 14%. Vaccinated children, 16%. Neonatal deaths, 83 per thousand. For India, it was 28 during the same time. This is what dynasty reduced Amethi and Raebareli to, even though they kept on electing the Gandhis until 2019. And then, after keeping them like this, they have the gall to mock the poor. कुछ शर्म है या वो भी कोयला समझ के खा गए?
Well, that was quite an exposition. Let me bring in Sanjay Jha. Sanjay Jha, it is interesting because just a few days back, and I will pick up from where Dr. Ranganathan ended this. Just a few days back, I remember Rahul Gandhi making this speech about two Indias, accusing the BJP-led NDA of dividing this nation. And then, of course, they criticized, and rightly so, the Chief Minister of Haryana for imposing upon his own state a 75% private quota to advantage only Haryanvi domiciles at the exclusion of all others. And rightly so. And today you have Priyanka Gandhi Vadra lustily cheering Channi, who is making parochial remarks like this in a state where, let me tell you, and you know better than I, you've lived history slightly longer, where for 20 years migrants and migrant labor was killed in terror attacks or butchered. You want to evoke that kind of pathology again? You're on mute. Sanjay Jha, you're on mute. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Okay, there's some problems with your audio. I don't know, you're on mute or you've depressed your audio. I don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Is this better?
We can hear you now. Great, go ahead. Yeah.
Rahul, I'm from Bihar.
Yeah.
और इसीलिए मैं खुलेआम कहूंगा कि यदि किसी भी शख्स यहाँ पर चन्नी जी ने जिस तरीके का उन्होंने बयानबाजी किया है, उसकी कड़ी से कड़ी निंदा करनी चाहिए। वो गलत बात है। ऐसी बात किसी को नहीं करनी चाहिए। लेकिन आप सुनिए, मेरी पूरी बात सुनिए आप। मैं आपको याद दिलाना चाहूंगा राहुल जी, और आपके दर्शकों को इस बात को समझना पड़ेगा, ये वही मुख्यमंत्री आपने खट्टर जी का आपने यहाँ पे उदाहरण में आपने कहा है। जरा योगी आदित्यनाथ जी जब उन्होंने कहा कि उत्तर प्रदेश, जम्मू कश्मीर, बंगाल और केरला जैसा हो जाएगा, तो वो क्या कहना चाहते थे? मैं तो समझता हूं कि जिस तरीके का अपमान उन्होंने, मैं समझता हूं कि अपनी सांप्रदायिक राजनीति के लिए उन्होंने जम्मू कश्मीर, वेस्ट बंगाल और केरला का किया है, भाजपा को भविष्य में जाके वहां पर एक सीट भी नहीं मिलेगा। देश को तोड़ने का यही रणनीति है भाजपा का। और मैं, अनंत मेरे दोस्त है, लेकिन अनंत को मैं बताना चाहूंगा, आपने ढेर सारे आंकड़े दिए अनंत जी, लेकिन ये मत भूलिए, भारतीय जनता पार्टी का एक बहुत प्रमुख नेता, उसका नाम है तरुण विजय। बहुत बार मैंने टाइम्स नाउ में उनके साथ डिबेट किया हुआ है। उन्होंने कहा था कि जो दक्षिण भारत में रहते हैं वो काले होते हैं, उनका रंग काला है। रेसिज्म भारतीय जनता पार्टी का खुलेआम उस दिन, मैं समझता हूं कि पूरे देश के हर नागरिक के लिए एक शर्म का एक सबसे बेहतरीन उदाहरण था। इसका कोई जवाब मिलेगा? इसका भी जवाब चाहिए। तो इसीलिए मैं दोहराना चाहूंगा कि भाजपा के खून में देश को तोड़ना और राजनीति लाना तो उनका वो डीएनए है आज। लेकिन जो चन्नी जी ने कहा है वो भी बिल्कुल गलत है, लेकिन इस पर राजनीति नहीं होनी चाहिए। देखिए, बहुत दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण बात है, खेदजनक है कि आज चुनाव आ रहे हैं, इसीलिए सब लोग अपने ही जो भी वोट बैंक है उसको बढ़ाने के लिए कुछ न कुछ, मैं समझता हूं कि अशिष्ट और अभद्र भाषा का प्रयोग करें।
At least Sanjay Jha, he's at least pushed you into speaking in Hindi. That's wonderful. You know, that's he's pushed you back to adopt and embrace your roots. That's wonderful. And I think that for that, I think Mr. Channi requires to be given a big hug. Though I have to say that his remarks were completely despicable. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, a quick response before I bring in the BJP Member of Parliament. Yes.
नहीं, बिल्कुल। अगर संजय जी बिहारी हो के हिंदी में बोल सकते हैं तो मैं तमिलियन होके भी हिंदी में बोल सकता हूं। माफ करिए अगर हिंदी इतनी अच्छी ना हो, लेकिन संजय जी मैं आपकी बात से एकदम वाकिफ हूं। मैं आपको अपलॉड, आपकी प्रशंसा करता हूं जो आपने कहा। यह भी बात सच है कि आपने वॉटर बाउटरी करी, लेकिन मैं उसके अगेंस्ट नहीं हूं। आपने जो एकदम सही बोला, बीजेपी वाले भी ऐसा करते हैं, उसकी भी मैं कड़ी निंदा करता हूं। लेकिन दो चीजें मैं आपको कहना चाहूंगा। एक, तरुण विजय जी ने अपॉलॉजी करी थी जब हुआ था 3-4 साल पहले। उन्होंने कहा था मैं मेरी बात लोग समझ नहीं पाए या मैं कह नहीं पाया, वो मीडिया ने गलत ट्रांसलेट किया, जो भी है। लेकिन जो आप कह रहे हैं, अगर उन्होंने वो कहा है तो मैं उसकी एकदम कड़ी निंदा करता हूं। सेकंड बात, आपने हरियाणा चीफ मिनिस्टर का नाम लिया। उन्होंने 75% रिजर्वेशन रखी है 30,000 रुपीज से नीचे अर्न करने वालों की। पंजाब में चन्नी जी ने तो वो लिमिट भी नहीं रखी, उसका कोई कंडेमनेशन नहीं है। तो आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं। अक्रॉस द बोर्ड जो भी ऐसे परोकिलिज्म में आएगा, उसकी हिंदी मुझे मालूम नहीं, माफ कीजिएगा, सुधांशु जी हैं वो बता देंगे, उसकी कड़ी से कड़ी निंदा होनी चाहिए जो भी आएगा।
परोकिलिज्म अनलिमिटेड कहना चाहते हैं चन्नी साहब ने, फ्रेंचाइज बना दिया उसका। ठीक है, ओके फाइन। यू नो, लेट मी ब्रिंग इन डॉक्टर सुधांशु त्रिवेदी। त्रिवेदी साहब, यू आर बीइंग अक्यूज्ड ऑफ बीइंग two-faced. Sanjay Jha says that look, you have chief ministers, you have leaders who have said worse, far worse. You were in fact an ally for 30 years of a party like the Shiv Sena. It's a different matter that today the Congress has learnt and picked expansively from the vocabulary of Bal Thackeray, but that's a different matter. I'm only saying that you were also joined at the hip with the Shiv Sena for 30 years, but you didn't look at what the Thackerays were saying about migrants who had come from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh precisely to work in and find a fortune in Bombay or in other parts of Maharashtra. Doctor.
Rahul, in this context, I would just like to put a fact. When UP and Biharis were beaten up in Maharashtra, whose government was there at the time? It was a Congress government led by Vilas Rao Deshmukh. When this everything was done. Second thing, we have forgotten Sheila Dikshit's statement. कि दिल्ली में सारा प्रॉब्लम यूपी बिहार वालों से है. She was clearly, categorically कांग्रेस चीफ मिनिस्टर. एंड राहुल गांधी, साउथ में जाके मुझे समझ में आया कि राजनीति अलग होती है. यूपी वाले, उत्तर भारत वाले तो सतही होते हैं. Is there any if and but about it? And today, what Priyanka Gandhi was clapping and cheering when Channi was speaking like this. And remember, Chidambaram has said, वो नॉर्थ इंडिया नहीं होता तो साउथ बहुत आगे होता. All these things are nothing but to create a divide, whether it is a regional divide, a social divide, a caste divide, a communal divide, and try to get your thing done. This is a typical characteristic of the Congress party, which they have inherited from the Britishers, divide and rule. और वो उनकी characteristic पे दिखाई पड़ता है. और संजय झा जी को एक बात मैं याद दिलाता हूं, जो इन्होंने बड़ी आपत्ति की ना कि ये केरल और वो हो जाएगा. साहब, केरल भारत का एकमात्र राज्य है जहां की विधानसभा ने मार्च 2006 में कोयंबटूर बम ब्लास्ट के मुख्य आरोपी अब्दुल नसीर मदनी के लिए यूनानिमस रेजोल्यूशन पास किया. All 117 MLAs, each and every one from Congress and Communist had voted in favor of whom? A terror accused, which has never happened anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country. A constitutional apparatus was used to propagate and defend a terror accused. इसलिए ये बात कही गई थी. इसलिए कोई भी बात हम लोग निराधार आधारहीन नहीं कहते. हाँ, ठीक है कि वहां जाकर राहुल गांधी को एक नई राजनीति समझ में आती है उनको, क्योंकि वहां मुस्लिम लीग के साथ गठबंधन है. एमआईएम के साथ आप एक दौर में अनडिवाइडेड आंध्रा में रह चुके हैं. कांग्रेस का पीरजादा अब्बास सिद्दीकी के साथ बंगाल में रह चुका है और बदरुद्दीन अजमल के साथ असम में. तो वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड हाउ रीजनल कम्युनल सेंटिमेंट यू ट्राई टू प्रोवोक जस्ट फॉर द सेक ऑफ पावर. एंड दिस वाज व्हाट इज टुडेज इंसिडेंट इज नथिंग बट, एंड वन मोर, इट इज वेरी शेमफुल बिकॉज नेहरू परिवार वाज नॉट ओरिजिनली फ्रॉम उत्तर प्रदेश. दे वर फ्रॉम कश्मीर एंड इट वाज द पीपल ऑफ उत्तर प्रदेश who has given them so much और इतने बड़े-बड़े पदों पे पहुंचाया. और आज यूपी और बिहार के बारे में ऐसी बात कहना है. एंड पर्टिकुलरली वन मोर थिंग, आज पंजाब के बारे में किसका दिन है? संत रैदास की जयंती. संत रविदास उत्तर प्रदेश में, खालसा पंथ बनाने वाले गुरु गोविंद सिंह फ्रॉम बिहार. आप दोनों महान महापुरुषों की भूमि के बारे में ऐसी बात बोलकर पंजाबियत, सिक्खी और खालसा भावना का कितना बड़ा मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं, यह बात पूरी तरीके से जग जाहिर है.
Sanjay Jha, quick response before I bring in Subhrashta as well as Manasvi Thapar, political analyst and lawyer. Yes.
राहुल जी, सुधांशु जी को ये शायद मालूम नहीं है, लेकिन मैं बंबई में रहता हूं सुधांशु जी, और हमने बंबई में रहते हुए देखा है आपके सहयोगी शिवसेना का ही जिम्मेदारी नहीं था उसमें। मारपीट जो हुआ था उसमें आपके भाजपा के भी यहाँ पर आपकी जो भी स्थायी नेता लोग हैं वो भी उसमें जुड़े हुए थे। तो आप इसमें बहुत चालू मत बनिए। आपका या आप भी उत्तरदायित्व है। यदि बिहारी और उत्तर प्रदेश के लोगों को पीटा गया तो उसमें आपका भी हाथ है, समझ लीजिए। तो आज यदि यहाँ पर आप बहुत सिद्धांत दिखाने के लिए आए हैं तो इसका भंडाफोड़ और पर्दा जो कहते हैं ना, पूरा एक तरीके से पर्दा हटाना वो भी हमारी जिम्मेदारी है।
और मैं 5 सेकंड की बात और कह दूं सुधांशु जी, 5 सेकंड के लिए, सुधांशु जी 5 सेकंड,
If I can take liberty.
सबसे पहले राहुल, इफ आई कैन जस्ट टेक 5 सेकेंड्स, यू नो, यूपी और बिहार के लोगों को पीटने से पहले सुधांशु जी आप ये भी जान ले, सबसे पहले शिवसेना ने जिसकी पिटाई करी थी वो तमिलियंस थे। आप वो जानते होंगे बाला साहब का आइकॉनिक डायलॉग, उठाओ लुंगी बजाओ पुंगी, और तब आपने कंडेम नहीं किया था।
जो आपने बात की बहुत अच्छी बात। आई विल आंसर जस्ट इन वन सेंटेंस। राहुल, देखिए राहुल, जो संजय झा जी ने बोला ये नहीं बोल पाए सरकार किसकी थी। इफ यू आर पुटिंग एलिगेशन, व्हाट एक्शन यू हैव टेकन। और जो आनंद रंगनाथन जी ने बोला बिल्कुल सही बात है, बट उस समय यह भी कहा जाता था कि शिवसेना वाज देन created by Vasant Rao Naik, and a phrase Vasant Sena was also used for Shivsena when they were saying the slogan "Utha Pungi Bhaga Lungi." तो दोनों बातें हैं, फैक्ट देख लीजिए, it is being clearly.
Well, then you should specifically not have embraced them for 30 years. That was a long romance.
Subsequently,
that was a long romance, Dr. Trivedi. और अभी भी आप उनको छोड़ने के लिए तैयार नहीं थे। ये तो एक्चुअली आपके हाथ से रस्सी निकल गई। चलिए कोई बात नहीं। I want to bring in Subhashtra. Subhashtra, where do you step in on this? Because this is an important issue. You know, we've just had a stirring debate or a response by the Prime Minister to what Rahul Gandhi had said. And Rahul Gandhi did not pull his punches. We've just come off on the back of that, and there are letters who are again being written by some 600 intellectuals or what have you about how India is plumbing the depths of, you know, binaries and becoming two nations and this, that, the other. So in that context, this is unacceptable, but it's not just confined, unfortunately, to the Congress. Would you not agree?
Of course it is. And Rahul, I just want to make two small interventions. One is the fact that going forward, regionalism is going to be the new, the new ism in Indian politics. Neither Hindutva nor a reaction to Hindutva is going to garner the kind of support that regionalism would. Because clearly there is no central leadership in India under the leadership of either the dynast Congress nor any other regional political party that has the might to really take the entire country by the storm. They don't have it in them, which is why regional politics is going to really hold its sway. I say so because all these questions are really about sub-identities. They're actually they're actually creating a parallel sentiment to the larger meta-narrative of nationalism in order to subvert, those sentiments that rule the roost. That's point number one. Point number two, I'm amused that on a conversation in Bihar, on something as sensitive as this, nobody, no political leader at the top in Bihar or UP has actually come forward, because this is an affront on Bihari pride. I don't, I don the identities from both the states. I'm married into UP. I was born in Bihar, born and brought up in Bihar, and I'm a very proud Bihari. Day in and day out, people like us have to face the image concerns that that really afflict my state. The problem is that why do Biharis have to migrate in the very first place? It's not just about Maharashtra or Punjab or Gujarat, where we have been incarcerated, east, west and central Indian divide and all of that. I don't want to get into that. Politicians from Bengal didn't spare us this time. And unfortunately, No political leader has taken this up as a matter of, of national concern, because if we gloat and boast about the fact that हम आर्यभट्ट थे, तो हम चाणक्य थे, तो हम ये थे, तो वो थे, तो भाई आज जब पूरे प्राइड के नाम पे पूरा पॉलिटिकल कैपिटल सबका चल रहा है, then why is no political leader interested in taking that up? And in a response to संजय जी, हिंदी में बाजनो संजय भाई, हम मगही में बोलम कि बिहारी के कोई फर्क ना पड़े है कि कौन उनका का कह रहलन है। हमने अपन हिसाब से अपनी राजनीति हमेशा कर ली है, आगे भी करम। इतना कहला के बाद भी हम कहे थी कि बिहार के राजनीति समझेला कि कोई भी देश के कोई भी कोना में आदमी चल जाए, पार ना पैतनु कहे कि जे एकदम ग्राउंड लेवल पर जे काम कर रहे बिहार के राजनीति में, उनका बिहारी प्राइड, उनका बिहारी बौद्धिकता, उनका बिहारी जे संगत है, वो इतना जहीन तरीके से काम कर रहे बिना हिंदू मुसलमान के, बिना लाग लपेट के, कि अगला क्रांति भी बिहार से आयत। जेपी के क्रांति बिहार से आयल, 1942 के क्रांति जब भारत छोड़ो आंदोलन के जब क्रांति होल, बिगुल यहीं से बजल हल, बिहार से ही बजल हल, और अभी भी जो देश में राजनीतिक क्रांति की जरूरत है वो भी यहीं से बजत।
राहुल जी, संक्षेप में वो यही कहना चाहती थी कि बिहार का मर्यादा, बिहार के शोहरत पे जो भी अपमान करेगा, जो भी बिहारी का तौहीन करेगा, लेकिन बदलाव भारत का बिहार से ही होगा, और इसमें मैं सुब्रष्टा जी के साथ पूरी तरीके से इत्तेफाक रहता हूं। तो बिहारी का कोई अपमान न करे।
नहीं, इतनी हमदर्दी है तो why don't you ask the Congress leadership? You're already in their bad books, so it won't cost you very much for speaking up or writing another editorial. You should ask them to apologize, especially Miss Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. She can apologize. She should.
Well, let me tell you, Rahul, I'm saying this with complete honesty and integrity on your show. I condemn it strongly. There are many people in the Congress I'm very close to, but I will publicly tell you this on your show. Mr. Channi got carried away. This is a season of election, but rhetoric and hyperbole is no excuse for making such parochial comments.
Manasvi Thapar, let's hope that tonight you're not also going to indulge in whataboutery. Do you believe, and I'm asking you a straight question, that the Congress leadership, beginning with Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, is going to show up in the next few days in Uttar Pradesh to campaign or renew her campaign? And number two, Mr. Channi owe an apology. Simple, straight question.
Rahul ji, in 2018 when in BJP Gujarat, what happened was Hindi-speaking people were attacked and they were told to move out of the state of Gujarat. At that time, BJP was silent. And recently, after the finance budget, the finance minister said that UP type sawal mat pucho. So what was this UP type sawal mat pucho? And now I was listening to Sudhanshu ji. He said that 30 years with Shivsena was basically a Rashtrabadi alliance. And now when Shivsena is not with them, it's a Atmanvadi alliance. So the hypocrisy of BJP is completely out. When their leaders, their states speak something about migrants, they are silent on that particular count. Why didn't the BJP, the blood of BJP is boiling right now for UP and Bihar? Why were they silent when Nirmala Sitharaman ji made the statement UP type sawal? Ye UP type sawal kya hota hai? I want to understand this from Sudhanshu ji.
No, one second. Manasvi
UP type
Thapar,
sawal kya hota hai?
you can ask that question. I began by asking you, do two wrongs make a right?
Obviously not. I think that has been answered.
No, it's not been answered by you. You're the Congress, Youth Congress member here, so I'm asking you, Manasvi Thapar. Just straight off the bat, you're also an articulate lawyer. Do they owe an apology? It's a very simple question. Why are we dancing around the bush?
Correct. You're very right on that point. So I condemn what Channi ji said, and I also condemn what Nirmala ji said. So will Sudhanshu ji also condemn what Nirmala ji said? The question is very direct.
Seconds.
Okay, Dr. Ranganathan wants to come in. Okay, Dr. Ranganathan and Dr. Trivedi. Yes, after that I'm running out of time. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan. Yes, Subrashto also wants to come in. Everyone wants to come in. Okay, one. Quick, everybody. Yes.
Yes, thank you. No, very quick, simple question to my good friend Manasvi ji. Manasvi ji, yes, you have said you condemn Mr. Channi. Very simple question to you. Do you also condemn the vociferous applause and cheering at Mr. Channi's remark by Priyanka Gandhi? Yes or no?
My question is to Sudhanshu ji. The problem is when I ask a question.
There we go.
How far back in history should we go? How far back in history should we go? Is there a limit? As I began by saying, those, I began this by saying
Can I say one sentence?
सुधांशु जी को बचाने की कोशिश मत करिए, मेरा सवाल
I would like to say just one sentence.
This is unfair.
The pathetic situation of Congress which has happened and the manner in which they are trying to defend, वो रहीम का एक दोहा है कि बिगड़ी बात बने नहीं, लाख करो किनकोए, रहीमन बिगड़े दूध को मथे न माखन कोए. So now the milk is spilled and whatever you try, you cannot get makhan out of this.
Okay, very quickly,
जवाब नहीं देंगे.
Subhrashtra.
अरे कब बोला था भाई, बताओ ना कौन सा संदर्भ था, कब आपने क्वेश्चन रेज किया,
आप बताइए
किस क्वेश्चन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं?
सवाल क्या होता है सुधांशु जी?
अरे आपकी बात आप कह रहे कब था? अरे मे बी यूपी टाइम इज द बिग क्वेश्चन, यूपी टाइम इज द बिग एंड कॉम्प्लेक्स क्वेश्चन. इसको पता, आई डू नॉट, आई नेवर हेard about it. तो बता दीजिए ना, काहे नहीं
सवाल क्या होता है?
Big question, like a big and complex state like UP, could have been more big and complex question.
Okay.
आपकी सोच है ना UP type सवाल.
What is a UP type सवाल?
Okay, viewers, very quickly, let me bring in. Okay, let me bring in Subhrashtra. Subhrashtra, yes, very quickly. Yes, ma'am.
Rahul, I would want to go back to the same issue which I raised. Look, we can go on and on about this politician said that about Bihar and, in response, this politician had this to offer. It's actually not a question of, statements. It's a question of the mindset. It's the question of an image that the state has carried for far too long. And not why just Bihar, UP also. The problem really is with the leadership, whether we acknowledge it or not. UP is again a very complicated bag. The question of identity in UP is not as vexed as, in case of Bihar, where we have a very defined, regional, sub-regional identities. The point is very simple. Socialism in Bihar has held its roots for the longest time. Ever since India got independence, Bihar has been ruled by socialist rulers. I'm using the term ruled.
Okay.
After Karpuri Thakur, from Karpuri Thakur onwards till now, till Nitish Kumar, no policy has ever had any inclination to individual enterprise, entrepreneurship, business development. This is bound to happen. People will migrate out. Then who do we question? For sure, we cannot question the Congress party on this one. And let me put it out. My love for the Congress is known to everyone. I hate the dynastic Congress politics from every inch and fiber of my body. But I'm really sorry. As a Bihari, I won't question the Congress leadership on the abysmal business policies that Bihar has.
Well,
Till the time businesses do not grow in Bihar, all of this conversation about Bihari pride is nonsense. Nothing is going to come out of it.
Okay, very quickly, Dr. Trivedi, very quickly, and I need to wrap up right after. Yes.
Just one sentence जो शुभ्रास्ता ने कहा कि जैसा समाजवाद रखा गया बिहार में, उसके लिए कवि थे गोरख पांडे, उन्होंने समाजवाद के लिए लिखा था, समाजवाद बबुआ धीरे धीरे आए. फिर उन्होंने लिखा था कि लाठी चलाई, गोली चलाई, फिर हो देखो अहिंसा कहाई, और फिर कहे धीरे से आई, चुपके से आई, आंखन पे आके पट्टी बनाई, समाजवाद बबुआ धीरे धीरे आई. That is the situation in which, as he correctly said, that led to Bihar in the last 2 generations, and that's why the real potential was never utilized.
Okay, viewers, we've had an intense debate here. We've had an intense debate, but we're none the wiser, let me tell you, because as we end this, there will be another bunch of politicians tomorrow from yet another bunch of parties who will perhaps repeat the same mistake. And we'll be back here debating it and listening to another round of whataboutery. This will go on. The only way you can end it is to atone. Come out and say we were wrong, sorry. Once you do that, let me tell you, viewers, not only will you gain credibility, but you will also set a moral bar. It'll become difficult. Let me tell you that. I need to move on because